Welcome to the sessions. Good morning. And I see that some people, not yet, are joining online. There are some people who may join online. So my name is JC Luvasua. I come from Madagascar. I work for WWF as the coordinator of a program implemented in 5 countries from South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, and Madagascar. And today's sessions will be focusing on coastal communities and the sustainable blue economy. And I will go through the agenda afterwards, but today we are expecting to have 5 speakers. And the 5 speakers, I will introduce them as they go. But maybe we can start with the agenda. So, as I said, coastal communities and sustainable blue economy. And the agenda, we won't be having that opening speech, but we will go straight to the presentation. I will set the scene with the presentation on the community-based sustainable blue economy. And I will take you through the barriers and opportunities in the region. After that, I will ask Pam to join, and she will be talking about financial and non-financial tools to develop coastal communities enterprise. And Santacha will come over. His talk will be on partnership model to create regional Blue Incubator. And after that, we'll have John Carrico from the SWIO Tuna Civil Society Organization. And he will be focusing on civil society perspective on the value and need for the coastal community incubator. Unfortunately, our colleague from FDB won't be able to make it. I have asked for Corinne that I don't see here to join and talk about civil society in general involvement in the sustainable blue economy, but we'll see how that one will work. So without any further ado, I'd like us to start with a brief presentation from my side. All right, so we can go to the next. Thank you. Okay, I can do that. So this one is just to give you another view of the sustainable blue economy, state of play, and financial assessment in the region. And this is a study that we commissioned through some consultancy work. And the title of the baseline study was to assess the foundation for delivering a sustainable blue economy in the Southwest Indian Ocean. And this talk will be mainly to set the scene, and I will be mostly focusing on the community-based sustainable blue economy and mostly on the opportunities and barrier. Before we go there, sustainable blue economy, I think we've heard this one quite a lot. And from WWF perspective, what we are meaning by sustainable blue economy has 3 points. The first one, the sustainable blue economy provides social and economic benefits for the current and the next generation, and the future generation. The second point is that the sustainable blue economy restores, protects, and maintains the marine ecosystem. And finally, the sustainable blue economy is based on clean technology. And that is WWF perspective. The picture, by the way, this picture that you see here is the smallest chameleon on Earth. And it is like seen in Madagascar in one of the islands in Sahara. Next, please. So I've tried to take another perspective on what is meant by the economy, and you can see that there are many definitions. Now, I'd like to share with you the key findings from that baseline study and to share with you the key governance barrier and opportunity for a community-based sustainable blue economy. So on the barrier, of course, we have the lack of property rights and resource rights. We also see that there are inadequate support from the key stakeholders, governments, private sectors, but also a marginalization of communities. And of course, a proper communication and understanding on what SBE is. With respect to opportunities, there's an expanding network for collaboration in the region. And these are opportunities to share lessons among communities level institutions. Another opportunity is that the strengthening institutional mechanism and legal frameworks for co-management in many of the countries. We are talking here about the beach management units, but also the others like LMMAs. And the last point on the opportunities is like to strengthen inclusive governance processes. And there's a growing recognition of the need for an inclusive, sustainable blue economy. If we move to the finance aspect on SBE community-based, it is like a clear lack of capacity when it comes to access to finance, but also a lack of strategic planning and evaluation of coastal communities, and of course, the rights and property issue. The opportunity is related to the finance for the coastal community-based SBE is the provision of support and capacity building in microfinance. There's also opportunity in adding value to products and services and engagement in ecosystem restoration, MPAs and blue carbon projects, and of course, ecotourism and sustainable fisheries. So now I'd like to move towards the recommendations that the study provided. And the first one will be on the finance. So the study provides many recommendations depending on the stakeholders. The one that I highlight in red is for the development of a community-based enterprises. So the recommendation stands as follows. There's a need as we develop those community enterprises to focus on resilience, food security, and coastal protection using natural-based solutions. And the second one is, of course, to manage both positive and negative impacts. So this is for the finance side. So when it comes to the general, I would say, recommendation based on the state of play, there are many of them, but I've highlighted in red those which may be relevant when it comes to the communities. The first one is, can read on the left, the key findings is like lack of effective integrated planning and effective enforcement of existing legislation. And the recommendation that is linked to that one is to promote and support implementation of ecosystem-based marine spatial planning and ocean management. The next one that I find relevant with respect to communities is, on the key findings, a general lack of understanding of the importance of sustainability in SBE, because oftentimes we talk blue economy, but we should not forget about the S, which stands for sustainable. And the recommendation on that one is there's a need to develop SBE capacity building materials and undertaking awareness campaign, and of course, develop curricula and called training. And this is for the key stakeholders from both government, but also communities. If we continue on that line, still on the key findings and the recommendations, these are the two last ones. The first one is, up to now, very few bankable and scalable SBE business opportunities exist. And to address that, we need to develop and publicized a compendium of successful SB studies. And the very last one, not the least, is the coastal communities are vulnerable, marginalized, and severely lack of SB business skills. And the related recommendation is to conduct further research, and that will be around community-based enterprise needs, but also small and medium enterprises. So that is the main findings, but to conclude, the challenge and risk for a transition to a sustainable blue economy must be met. And the blue carbon have a particular role to play in that one, especially in supporting communities. There are many existing initiatives. One of them is our Blue Future, to which we are a member of, as many others organizations. So our Blue Futures and other partners need to promote private sector and community partnership and pilot models for replications across the region. And that will be supported by incubators and other novel finance mechanisms. I stop there. I hope that these first introductions have given to you an overall of what we'll be discussing today. So I stop there for now, and from now on, we'll move toward the interveners. For those, all right, I will have few speakers coming here, and we'll start with Pavin from Finance Hub. Everyone will have like 15 minutes to go through the talk. And for those who have questions, please write them down. We'll go through them. We'll make sure that there's enough space for exchange after. So, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for that excellent overview of what we'll be covering in this session. And good morning to everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. The slides come up. Thank you. So I'm here with my colleague Gail Hurley from an organisation called Financer. So for those of you who are not aware of us as yet, we're a fully regulated investment advisor and fund manager based in the UK, but working with partners globally to enable investment into communities, climate and conservation at scale. And those communities really are at the heart of what we do, and our bottoms-up approach, which perhaps differs from some of the other sort of environmental investment advisors that operate in the space. Thank you. And it's this community approach that I'm going to talk through now, just to bring a bit of context to the work that we've been doing over the last few years. So our starting point, as I said, from the bottoms-up approach, is to start by engaging local stakeholders, local communities, and identifying potential target activities across a landscape or seascape. And what we start to look for, which is pivotal to investment, is to try and identify opportunities that have the capacity to generate a revenue stream. And that becomes the starting point from where we are. What we do then is we review the evidence, the beneficiaries, what the key costs are, and what that revenue model might be, in order to assess the capacity of that opportunity to take on private investment. What we then go on to do is to develop investment cases. So that includes financial modeling and the governance models that could support those opportunities in embracing the investment that's available. But what's really key to that is that we then look, before going out to market, is to gather community and investor feedback to actually refine that model. And with that feedback, we then further develop and refine the investment case before then we structure the type of finance. And this approach ensures that we get exactly the right type of capital behind the right type of project, so that every solution is suited to what is needed on the ground. What we then consider to be very important is to evaluate the learnings from those models and make sure that those are shared, and the opportunity to scale those learnings is shared across communities and across the region. So what I'm going to cover today is just building on that approach, and what Dressie so helpfully put out is actually how can we deliver investment into the SWIO C-state. So the interest in the sustainable blue economy and investments has really been growing. However, in the last 10 years, less than 1% of the total value of the blue economy has actually been invested in sustainable projects. However, it's a growing space, and the economy is expected to expand at twice the rate of the mainstream investment economy by 2030. As you might be aware, over the last few days, there's been a mention of emerging funds and financing initiatives that are focused specifically on the sustainable blue economy that are emerging. Examples of this might be the Sustainable Oceans Fund developed by Morova, or also the Global Fund for Coral Reefs. But one of the challenges that some of these financing initiatives are having is actually identifying the pipeline of projects that they can deploy these funds into. There are certain sustainable blue economy sectors that are actually driving the most interest, and I'm sure we may be aware of those. They include sort of fisheries and aquaculture, renewable energy, particularly with fishers and cold chain solutions, but also around coastal and marine waste management. So now we're going to take a step back and actually look at it from the investor's perspective. And when investors come in to make a decision about whether to invest in a project, what they seek to do is balance between the risk of the project and the potential return that they could generate. So we're going to start by looking at the return. So for sustainable enterprises, for the sustainable blue economy, the types of investors tend to be less commercial investors, but more what we call impact investors. These are investors that on their return are not only looking for a financial gain from their investment, but they are also looking into the environmental and social impact or outcomes that can be achieved through the money that they've invested in these projects. This return is then balanced against the risks that are associated with their investment. The kind of risks, this is not an all-inclusive list, but some of the key risks that they would want to consider are the project governance. Is the right governance structure in place to provide a safety net for the money that they're investing? Who are the stakeholders that are involved? Is there a strong project lead? Who are the delivery partners? Is that wider network of delivery partners involved? And ultimately, who are the buyers of the product and all the services that are being delivered? They want to ensure that the critical enablers are in place, whether the policy that's required is in place, whether the regulation and the standards are in place, whether there's the necessary infrastructure for that investment opportunity to be successful. For example, one of the challenges that we've encountered is with ecotourism opportunities, where there isn't the infrastructure or the roads for tourists to get to these ecotourism offerings, that presents a challenge. But also where there's technology involved. We've seen the mention of technology over the past few days, and that's another critical enabler that could lead to the success of these opportunities. And finally, there's the macroeconomic factors. So the general market conditions, volatility in those markets, but also, as we're still feeling the effect of, is any repercussions from COVID-19. So just to summarize, from the investor's perspective, impact investors' perspective, that would be looking to invest in the projects that we are going to be talking about today, it's a balance between the risk and the return. And it'll be important to kind of keep that fundamental concept in the back of our minds as we look to move into the barriers and the opportunities. So if we move then onto the barriers to, I discussed in the last slide that there's a lot of interest in the market, but why is it that that percentage of investment going into sustainable blue economies is so low? And so while they are these sources of investment, common barriers, both financial and non-financial, exist. So firstly, the lack of risk funding and seed investment. So as we're all aware through the hard work that you are all doing, there's limited public and philanthropic funds to help mitigate some of the project risks that are involved when developing sustainable blue economy opportunities. Further to that, the sustainable blue economy opportunities that we are looking at, they tend to generate lower and longer term return profiles than which might, again, looking to that risk return balance between the two, that might make it sort of higher risk, and maybe as those returns aren't coming early enough in the project lifetime. The next barrier is around the capacity, the capability, and the expertise. And what we find is that there's a real need for local project developers to get what they need to invest those into the capacity, capability, and expertise to deliver and build the sustainable blue economy expertise, as Trezi has already mentioned. We then go on to the stage of project development. So I'll come into this in more detail, but essentially a lot of the blue economy, sustainable blue economy opportunities we identify are very early on in their stage of project development. And this means that their return profiles or their cash flow or revenue generation profiles are less certain. And then again, thinking back to the risk and return appetite, the less certainty around those return profiles may increase sort of perceived risk of those opportunities. So what we really want to do is accelerate those opportunities, develop them further, and build certainty around their revenue generation potential. The next point is around data, evidence, and verification. So this is just when we're looking to, on the impact side, within the social and environmental impact that these opportunities are having. Sometimes they are very small scale, and it's harder to develop the data and evidence behind those. And finally, we've covered this, but just in some cases, the inadequate government policies and regulations standards to help support these opportunities. So going into more detail on the stage of project development. So the tool that we use here is called the J-curve. It's more an example. It's not to say that all projects will follow every stage, but this is just to help illustrate the kind of journey that businesses may go through in their development towards what we call investment readiness. So you'll see over time, the confidence of those cash flows grows from when they're an embryonic idea or a concept, to when you start testing those concepts through feasibility studies, to when you start demonstrating the outcomes that can be achieved through pilots and proof of concepts, to when they further develop into early operational opportunities towards their growth and maturity. And what we did a couple of years ago with our partners, WWF, and now looking at others as well in the region, is to look at what those revenue generating opportunities are and assessing them on that level of investment readiness. And as you can see from this graph here, the scoping review showed that majority of the projects are just not quite at that stage to take on investment. And if that's the case, what is needed to deliver that investment readiness? What is required to push more of those opportunities up that J-curve and towards investment readiness? And what we've done is we've broken them down into 3 categories. We can start with the non-financial needs. So the first one is around capacity building for local project deliverers and developers and local partners. There's the technical support aspect, which helps to prove and maximize the outcomes that can be generated from those opportunities. All of that can then be brought together in terms of business planning. So what is the operational model that is going to develop that opportunity? What underpins it? What are the resource requirements needed to build that opportunity further and accelerate it up the J-curve? And then how can all of that knowledge through the business planning be translated into an investment case that can be taken to impact investors and address those risk and return considerations that they'll be taking into account when they make their decision to go ahead with the investment or not. We've then got the financial needs. So there's a real need of development funding and seed investment in that middle part, specifically of the J curve, to help test those concepts, to help show the feasibility of those business models, to help prove those social environmental outcomes, to build that data and that evidence that will support the investment case. And then what we've got is the bigger picture needs. So as I said, a lot of the opportunities that we've identified are very small scale. And when you compare that to the transaction size that investors may be looking for, the ratio between those is out of kilter. And so what we try to look at is actually where we find similar projects with similar needs of similar sizes that require similar types of capital. How can those be aggregated to build a bigger portfolio of projects that can be more appetizing for the investor when compared to the transaction costs that were involved in making an investment? And finally, the strategic governance, which is really key. And that governance structure has to focus on having communities and local partners involved and engaged, and ensures their representation in these governance structures, which then allow other parties, both local financing institutes and international financing institutes, to engage with them through this strategic governance structure. So what we were thinking, as Dresy pointed out, is actually we know what the needs are, we know what the barriers are, we know what the needs are, and how can we address those through a structure to build those sustainable blue economy opportunities, boost them up the J curve. And actually what we've identified is an incubator program that could be developed specifically tailored to the types of opportunities that we've identified, those small scale community-based enterprises that my colleague from WWF Suntouch will be talking more about in the next session, to bring a bit of light to what are the opportunities that we've identified. And essentially through this incubator program, we're looking to drive enterprise development over time through delivering all of those needs that we identified through that portfolio in terms of capacity building or pipeline building, delivering that investment readiness, piloting those projects, shaping and the strategy and governance required to them. And finally, it doesn't end there. It's not when they finally are investment ready and they get that investment within to them, but actually making sure that the program is able to provide that post-investment support. So ongoing monitoring, evaluation and reporting to make sure that those outcomes are achieved and those projects can continue to develop to deliver the social and environmental impact that is intended through them. So I'll end there. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll hand over to Santa.
It's a lot of time, very institutional, experiencing, and I think that people better understanding what are the key requirements if you work on more towards community development, and also the financial and non-financial tools. And what is the way to move toward the incubator? So now we are going to give the floor to Santacha, and Santacha will be talking about the partnership to create a regional Blue Incubator in the SWIO region. Santacha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. My name is Santacha. I work for WWF Madagascar, and I'm supporting the team also on this work related to developing more, advancing more community enterprise and community livelihood. It's going to be hard to be more technical or to do better than what I've presented. So what I'm going to try to understand here is to which extent I should talk, right? So I just want to. Yes.
Online, so you want.
Hello, people online. Sorry. Sorry, always forget people online. So my question would be, just raise your hand if you feel who works in the space of community livelihood here, around here? Who works in the space of community livelihood? Right? You have projects related to community livelihood and income, coastal community. Who thinks that it's easy to work with community livelihood? Right? It's very complex because we, in the Southwest Indian Ocean, we talk about an ecosystem where the economy is not that the strongest in the world. The financial system does not help a lot. And then the ecosystem to help enterprises as a whole is sometimes missing compared to other parts of the world. And when it comes to community enterprise, it's even harder because the community of fishers or community, coastal communities are on their own. And then as part of it, one of the dilemmas that we want to address in this part of the work was how to progress community enterprise, how we can help and unlock potential. So PAV has discussed about a lot of support around community enterprise. There was like 2 years work now, more than 2 years work assessing the needs and identifying potential partners and identifying challenge in developing community enterprise across the region. So one of the things that we want to develop and to self-sustain beyond project community enterprise is to be able to attract investment. She just mentioned earlier how to attract larger investment, but just to set the scene, those who are working, we are working in the project scene, we are depending on the donors. Donors, money has time frame, like 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, right? And then beyond that time frame, what happens to those enterprises is they need more money, they need to reinvest, they need to maintain, they have cost in their enterprise. Often, they don't have access to that money. But money is not the problem because what you see on the dilemma here is that there's a large supply of money around the world, especially private capital that want to invest in enterprise that provides enough return on their investment with low risk, of course, and higher return, normally the standard. Now, what we are trying to look is how do we unlock access to more capital, even not those big capital as Pat just explained in a more clearer way earlier. And we have lots of projects. All of us have community enterprise projects, but the scale is not there. The technical support is not there. We personally feel like we have done enough, but it's never enough because most of the time, once we leave the community, they are, as a person, as a single organization, you can do everything. You just have to help in one single work stream. So this approach is how do we then resolve this in a sustainable way and self-sustaining way beyond our project, beyond our organization. And then one of the solutions would be an incubator to cater community enterprise, specifically to cater community enterprise across the SWIO region. As you can see here, the community enterprise, I don't want to repeat again, but the community enterprise incubator would be working on investment readiness. That means a lot of technical support, a lot of partnership, market access. And one new thing about community enterprise is, I think, the concept of aggregation, which does not happen in a lot of accelerators or incubators, like how do we aggregate and consolidate multiple projects across the region? The concept that we are trying to test, that's on a concept stage only. That's the dilemma, right? As just already mentioned by Pav earlier from the financer, an incubator would also provide a lot of services and providers a lot of services to community enterprise, such as capacity building, business planning, and channeling. They would be also able to channel seed fundings or attract seed fundings to those enterprises beyond our own projects. But mostly, how do we see that is the aim of this is to create a mechanism that could be self-sustainable in the long term and potentially recovering cost through success fees. So that incubation would not eventually depend on donors' money or external money. And then what you see here is, as just mentioned, is the way we approached this work was initially we started as within WWF's scope of projects like livelihood projects, but it has been highlighted through our studies that incubation needs multi-stakeholder approaches because some diversity of expertise is not within one or two organizations. For instance, and I'm really happy that we have our minister around the government has their place to do policy. You are mentioning policy, legal framework. We have private sector that provide market access, they provide organization and also aggregation of smaller projects. And you do have different types of expertise. So there is that through that multi-stakeholder approach, what we have done this year is to anchor the SWIO incubation project under multi-stakeholder platform called Our Blue Future that JC introduced us earlier, where a lot of organizations are member of, and hopefully your organization is here. If it's not here, please come to us, and we will be able to link you to the coordinator of this multi-stakeholder approach called Our Blue Future. So do we have financial fee? Yeah, financial fee is here. SWIO Tuna is here. WWF is here. Blue Venture is here. Right. So under this platform, under that platform, Our Blue Future, which is focused on sustainable blue economy across the region. Sorry, we have future people attending. There are multiple innovation teams that are working on different projects and work streams. So we anchored this SWIO Incubator project under one innovation team called Coastal Communities Incubation and Innovation Team. So what is the role of an innovation team then under that multi-stakeholder initiative? So this specific innovation team is aiming at designing mechanisms to bring together smaller projects across the region of sustainable blue economy, and then to aggregate those projects, assess the potentiality of each project, and aggregate those projects to be able to be translated into a single investment. I'm not a finance wizard, but I'm sure that our financial people will help later to explain it more. And of course, what's important is beyond larger organizations or governmental organizations, how do we empower and help community CSOs that working alongside coastal communities in their capacity to support communities on livelihood aspect, right? Our CSO partners are one of the most important partners to becoming enablers of that coastal community livelihood as well. So I just want to bring you in that journey, to explain you that journey of how we arrived here, and then how you can engage into on this work stream under Our Blue Future. So February this year, what happened this year? February this year is we organized a 3-day virtual workshops. We try to invite as much as possible diverse organizations to better understand what are their challenges and their needs in terms of developing their community livelihood projects. And this will happen this February. So after that workshop, we managed to highlight some of the challenges and the needs of diverse organizations. So we had a virtual follow-up meeting a month after that. And then we've conducted a more precise survey co-led by financier WWF and SWIO Tuna, including Blue Ventures this time and TechnoServe. So the organizations and the co-leaders are extending as we moved forward. And then June this year, during the United Nations Ocean Conference, the innovation team was formalized under our Blue Futures, and that innovation team now has 30 members. July, innovation team meeting, and then more funding comes into the work stream. But what's important is, I think some of you attended WIOMSA earlier this year. We officially managed to launch the innovation team. So this work stream now is officially a multi-stakeholder work, but it's not our work anymore only. So if you have input and you want to come into that work, jump into the, please come to us, feel free. It's SWIO work. So this is a little bit of snapshot of the pictures during the launch at WIOMSA earlier this year in Port Elizabeth. And then I think most important is now we want to present a couple of the projects that we have done, assessed, and formalized under this innovation team. So the first, I will present here only 2 projects, but I think we have identified around 28 so far. We work on assessing 28, and I think that is a work in progress. We continue to assess opportunities across the region. So 28 so far, but if you have a project, like the project that you want to test and assess against, that's why you're Incubator. Please feel free to come to us or to FinanceServe to submit your project. One of the most important project, and I mean promising project, was a solar ice solutions that was led and initiated by our colleagues from WWF Kenya for small-scale fishers. The challenge of small-scale fishers usually, because it's a good context to talk about it, and it's not only, it's mentioned in Kenya, but we always experiencing that post-harvest loss. The percentage might differ from country to countries, but this is very important thing to mention. So the incentives would be to increase fishing activities and to add value on fishing by storing more. The opportunity behind this project is to provide energy efficiency off-grid solar ice machines. Now, most of the countries across the region are replicating these types of having some sort of the same infrastructure or project across the region, with, of course, addressing different challenges. But basically, we feel like this is one of the opportunities to go through that incubation acceleration program. I won't spend too much time also on the support that an acceleration would provide. The second project in Madagascar, where a lot of our colleagues here, Blue Ventures, the ministry, and WWF are working with, is the seaweed farming project, which is an outgrowers types of model where private sector and private off-taker are contracting with communities of fishers or their families or their wives into growing and farming seaweed. And I think there are lots of studies also from institutes that assess and highlight the benefits of seaweed farming in some areas, coastal areas. It provides so far it has provided $480 additional revenue for community of fishers, which also compensate their income during fisheries closure. So one key learning from this example, for example, is it by itself is already a multi-stakeholder approach, because we have communities, we have CSO engaged in it, we have different types of organizations such as Blue Venture, WWF, and we have also private sector already engaged in this model. Those are the 2 examples that I think worth to highlight during this work stream, but it's also important to talk about the next step. What we are looking for is to still continue to build a vibrant community of practice around community enterprise incubator in the region. And then we share some learning agenda across it. So there is also under the small scale fisheries platform, a learning agenda for that SWIO incubator and the learning resources for that specific SWIO incubator. So if you're interested in knowing more, please go on SSF Hub. It's accessible for the public. The second stage, of course, is itself. It's a long process to reach that self-sustaining incubation. So we still continue to fundraise, to attract partners, attract donors to support us on that developing this project. And as just mentioned earlier, if we do have relevant community enterprise or livelihood project happening now that you feel like need more support, please come to us because we are still assessing and identifying pipeline of bankable community enterprise across the region. So that is my presentation. So I will be happy to respond to your question later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Senator. Now we have a better understanding of what's going on in the region. We're trying to implement a set of data. Our next speaker comes from the room. They are organization with whom we are working with. And I'd like to introduce you to John from Kenya, and he's one of the members of the SWIO tuna. So John will be talking about the perspective or CSO perspective on the value and needs for a coastal community incubator. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and the people online. My name is John Kareko. I come from Kenya, and I'm currently working with Yotuna. And my background is collaborative management on the natural resource systems. So my previous speakers have talked much about incubation and what you need to do, and where to seek for resources. But now comes on how do you get in touch with the community? And that's where Yotuna now comes in. Because you have seen the planning has been done, so many things which are quite complex, which the community may not be able to really understand in the best way possible. So Yotuna comes to link all this planning with the community, because Yotuna by itself is just a coordinating body, which just has a secretariat. But the members of Yotuna are the civil society organization, which goes all down to the community level. It's actually a community organization. So all what Yotuna does is to coordinate the activities. So that means in every day's occasion, the Yotuna is with the people. And it's the people that now know what they need to grow. So normally from the basis, I'll talk mostly from the basis where we come from, and it's on the fishery side. We have all known the fishery sector or the small scale sector. I cannot, in much confidence, talk about businesses that have begun and grown. And we say, yes, we began from zero, and this is where we are. Many of the businesses that we start still remain in the infant levels. And we need to start asking ourselves the question, why is that? Why don't they grow? Year after year, they don't grow, they remain at that situation. So there's need for an incubator to get us now moving. And now where Yotuna comes in is the J curve we are talking about. How do we accelerate that curve at the grassroots level? as communities, and the other civil society organizations that are within that level, so that at least we are able to link with the people who matter in accelerating that curve. And most of you know that currently most of those projects or businesses that the small scale fishers and the communities have cannot attract funding from the mainstream financing organization. So the question, how do we close that bridge in a way that now we are able to get there? And that's what now Situna will be doing to try to get them there. But before we get to that, we need to ask ourselves, what are the benefits that we are going to get as a community when we are being incubated? One, we get to a point where we understand our businesses better. Because one of the things that we have found is that most of us take the little businesses that we have as a way of life. We don't look at them as a business. And we believe that the business is for those who are doing bigger things out there. So what mostly we expect is for people to come and draw businesses to us and then maybe try to run. But I don't think that would be sustainable. So what we are trying to do now is get to see how can we be assisted to be able now to have businesses that grow and work like any other business in the world. And to do that, we need technical assistance to also shorten the learning curve. We also need network and relationship with other business owners where they are. We want also to be able to link to markets that matter so that at least whatever we are doing, we are sure that there is available market for it. So much planning is needed here. Then of course we need not just the finances, we need the financial system and also advice for now to be able to move forward. And then also we need to preservation of working capital, because what happens is that some of those small businesses get some little money, but where does it disappear? Where does that money disappear? We need to get to see these loopholes where this money disappears so that we get to know how we invest back into those little businesses. We have to enable them to grow. So all that is needed. And with that now, we shall be able to go. And out of that, also, there is sustainable economy coming up. And the communities need to understand what it is and how they can earn from it. And without that understanding, then they'll be left behind when the blue economy is developing. Then the livelihood of those people depends on the resources that they have. So if the resources are not sustainably managed, then it means even the businesses that we are starting now or want to incubate may not last long, because if there's no fish to preserve, then we will not need those called services. Then again, as I've said, most of those people that we are dealing with really are the grassroots, they are the communities, and they really need that help. And again, also, as we have said in the SWIO region, we know that most of us are within the developing countries, so there are many challenges that come with that. And some of these need to be overcome. The other thing also is, how do these small businesses begin? We are talking about communities. There are many things or aspects that involve around the communities. And one is the cultural connection and the national heritage for each different country. So you find those are kind of aspects that come into consideration when you're looking at these businesses. Because the businesses will succeed because from the way people organize to do the businesses and also to market whatever they have. So we need to help that, and also now widen into other opportunities that arise, like tourism and recreation purposes. So all of that, as we saw again, I don't want to spend much time on this because we find that all these businesses are different development levels. So we need to know where to interject incubation, because some of them are just at infancy, others have grown. So we need to see how we can grow that to be able to add value to these small businesses. So all of that, again, you need what we call capacity building. And this is what now, as Setuna, will link now all what has been said with the people. And this mostly will come from culture, knowledge, capacity, capital, point of intervention, and nurturing the small businesses to be able to manage it. So the other thing I think we also need to do is run away from the routines that we have, because we have been doing this for years, 50 years. Since I was born, we have been doing these little businesses. We don't move. We need to do something a little bit more different to be able to move. And I think that's where now the incubator is coming in. Will it help us now move to the next level? So, and I think it's coming at the right moment, just when blue economy is coming in, sustainable blue economy, and I think we need to take advantage of that. So, and out of that, again, these are some of the things I've talked about. It's going back to the floor, to the people, get to know, understand them, and get to know how we move forward. And Setuna is already in the ground in all the SWIO countries, so I don't think that is a big problem. Then on capacity building, also Setuna has been trying to expose the communities to what other countries are doing. So we have most of those communities going to other countries to see what they are doing, to be able to learn what works and what they can also try to do in their country to be able to succeed in whatever they are doing. And out of that, then all what we need to do is also, as we deal with these businesses, we also need to know where they are anchored before they have just been really traditional businesses. But if they are to grow, then they need to grow according to the law that is required. Also, in line with the resources that they have, and also they need to know how maybe to enter is their government to be able to be part of decision making as they move along, so that at least their businesses are not left behind. And with that, I say thank you and say that growth has to be nurtured as businesses. And as Setuna, working with our colleagues as a team, we are ready for that to see our community, small little businesses growing and having a history from where they began and where they will be in the future. Thank you very much.
Where does the money disappear? Very good question, John. And also breaking the routines. Very good points, and I think these are very good insights. The last speaker is a surprise one. I have to catch her on the way. So the next one will be Corinne from CNP Madagascar. CNP is a member of SWIO. So I've asked Corinne to speak about how the cities transition embarking on the SBE and what role they see, and if there's any recommendation that they'd like to share with us. So Corinne, is yours.
Yeah, thank you to give me the floor. So Sandra just asked to join there. I'm joining there. No. My name is Rawela Suporin. I'm part of Malagasy delegation as a society civil society participating on this Congress. So I came from Madagascar, and I'm the national coordinator of CNPE. CNP is a national coalition of environmental advocacy, an organization that was created in 2016 and bring together 52 CSOs dedicated to environmental cause, including a group of federation of a community and the spread throughout the Eastland. CNP is aware of importance of a role and the place of a civil society in counterbalancing the balance of power and interest in the face of challenge of conservation and protection of the marine environment, as well as the geopolitical and strategic issues of resource marines. This CNP invests in the promoting of good governance of marine conservation, and in particularly the fishing sector in Madagascar through advocacy actions. And especially our mission focuses on establishment of a rule of law for rational and optimal management of marine resources, ensure the role of environmental observatory, follow up the evolution of application of the laws, rule, text in the force related to management of marine resources. The next is strengthening intersectoral collaboration between the public sector, private sector, and civil society for coherent intervention and better coordination of action in the management of natural resources. And contribute to fight against illegal exploitation and illicit trafficking of natural resources. And in light of this, denunciation of all illicit and illegal practice in environmental matters. So, since its creation, in its vision, its mission, and its objectives, CNP has focused its action on reducing the multiple pressure exerted on the ocean, and at the same time promoting the good governance of marine resources, and in particular the fishing sector in Madagascar. Our work so focused on the protecting of the rights of the fishing communities, as well as the rights of access to resources. The second, to fight against SWIO fishing. And the last is the fight against marine pollution, the transparency of the fishing sector, and finally, the promote of a blue economy and the establishment implementation of MSP that we work with PVF in this point. Regarding the blue economy, when it was created, CNP has one of the CSO to challenge the government of the advantage of setting up in implementation the blue economy in Madagascar, and several actions were carried out. As CSO, our role is never easy. There are ups and downs, but my contribution today is to share our experience in promoting the sustainable blue economy in Madagascar, and mention sustainable. There are several steps have been taken in such a short time, thanks to goodwill the leader to our ministry of Fishery and Blue Economy, who is present here. A ministerial decision was taken by setting up the ad hoc committee for the multi-sectorial coordination of a blue economy and the ocean governance in Madagascar. This committee is made of a representative of ministry, private sector, and the CSOs, and the CNP is among the member of this committee. And as part of the process of developing the national blue economy strategy and its investment plan, there were recently a consultation operation, including the CSO, to enrich the data and information relating to the development of blue economy at the level of local, regional, in particular for priority and cross-cutting themes, fishing, aquaculture, forest and marine, and tourism, maybe tourism, yes, and energy. What is the form of involvement of a CSO? More precisely, our form of involvement are as follows. Participation as CSO in the ad hoc committees that I say before. Active participation in the implementation of framework documents, in particular in the development of national ocean governance policy, the national strategy, and the investment plan relating to effective implementation of SPE. The first, and the second, support for regional consultation and establishment of cluster regional coordination structure for the blue economy and ocean governance. So, ensure the establishment or implementation of a blue economy, as well as the coherence of a national plan and the national strategy in relation to the national vision and priority, international commitments in terms of conservation and sustainable of a role and generally in sector policy of Madagascar, while preserving the interest of local fishing communities. And then monitoring of effective implementation of marine spatial planning, ensure the best understanding and raising awareness of CSO and committees and the benefits of a blue economy. Ensures the creation and operationalizing of a civic space for dialogue with the public and private sector, and mobilization for the effectiveness of the right of CSOs to participate and influence a decision-making process within the framework of establishment, implementation of SWIO. But this is our involvement, but no. So as a recommendation, we CSO believe that the sine qua non condition for the promoting of a sustainable blue economy are best one. The first for the government, in principle, the acceleration of implementation of a blue economy depends on the political will of a leader, will ensure the well-being of all stakeholders, include without exception the fishing communities. The two, target and strengthen the engagement of Indian Ocean private sector within the framework of promotion of economy, so that they can invest in the promotion of a sustainable blue economy. My last recommendation is ensure and strengthen the participation of fishing communities in CSO and fishing and the CSO. Improve coordination and collaboration at the national, regional, or even international level, responding to the challenge of the governance of marine resources. And ensure the participation of vulnerable groups, and in particular, the victim of human rights violence in the decision-making process, relating to the establishment of SBE to better consider their interests, and ensure the equitable sharing of advantage, benefit derived from marine resources, taking into account the aspect of sustainability, and continuously strengthen the role of capacity or CSO at different levels, local, regional, national, and international, to consolidate their effective involvement in the establishment and implementation of a sustainable blue economy. And to my knowledge, I don't know if I'm right, but the majority of African countries devote 1% and maximum 5% of the national budget to their ministry of fisheries and the blue economy. And this is the case of Madagascar. However, its role are important. Thus, we must ensure that there is adequate funding relating to national priority, and especially meeting the need of fishing communities for this implementation, if not, the remain theory. Finally, again, for the government to listen to the concerns of fishermen and be open to any discussion, proposal, and/or recommendation for the CSO. Thank you so much.
And, yeah, I think there were several recommendations, and there were, I think, from the CSO sides, many asking for more inclusivity and also asking the government to allocate more budget. So we are at the point where the floor is now open for question, comments. You've heard the presenters, and I think if there's any question, comment, now is the time. Please raise your hand, we'll give you the floor. Okay, I don't see any hands for now. From Africa, and then, yes, Africa, you need to speak louder.
It's from my to find a way how to communicate it to the communities. Sometimes they will see so not as a donor. It's not it's not appropriate to have that they have that. So I think it's better to work on the communication of the facilitate, then we will have the opportunity to get the business. Now, so this is my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. John, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you very much for that observation.
Okay, please, I would like you to come here, those online, to also hear what is going on.
Yeah, thank you very much for that observation. And I would like to invite you to my next talk in the next room, where I'll be really explaining in depth how SWIO operates. SWIO, as I said, is just a coordinating body consisting of just a secretariat. But the members of SWIO are representatives of national alliances that are in each country, which are composed of the communities and the civil society organization. So it's actually the organization. So it's already connected to them. It's them who run it. So it starts from the ground, it's their own businesses, their own organization. So we are already talking about the community. So the secretariat just puts things together for the matter of clarity and being able to guide on where to go next. So it's a community organization.
Thank you, John. Can we take the next one? And if there's any more, then let's go for, yeah, so we will take the gentleman there, Craig, and then Santa Chan. Would you like to come here? It's like a bit challenging, but please. Your name, your position.
Okay, thank you very much for the presenters. My name is Kevin Wachira. I'm a fisheries officer from Kenya Fisheries Service, and I'm very glad to be here. So my question goes to the three presenters, the first three presenters. I concur very well that partnership is indeed important for the advancement of sustainable blue economy. However, I just wanted to seek clarification on the aspect of how to manage expectations for the partners, and mostly with the small scale fishers. How do they manage? How do we manage the expectations with regards to what the input we are making with the blue economy and the investments? And then the last question would be, how do private investors get actively involved? We have that notion that private investors will only bring money and funding, but we need them right now in sustainable blue economy to be actively involved. So how do we guide them and provide such a system? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take Craig's, and then we'll try to answer all of these. You might also precise to whom the question or the comment is. Okay.
Thanks.
You introduce yourself.
Thank you, JC. Good morning, all. My name is Craig Smith. I work for WWF South Africa. And just first of all, thanks to all the speakers for your informative presentations. And my particular question is to Santara. Where's Santara? You're right, pardon. Santara, just another assumption on with the solar ice project in terms of reducing post-harvest loss could potentially reduce fishing pressure. And my question is there evidence to support that? Are we seeing that? And maybe it's more appropriate to ask Lily this question, but do we see this? And are there any other safeguards in place so that it can't be, that the incentive can't be reversed? And is there a proper monitoring evaluation to just monitor that? So just, wrapping up on that. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig, for asking the very hard ones. Now, we take the ladies, and then we'll have to answer. Okay, ladies. Please.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the speakers. My name is Alusha Hitula. I'm a consultant for the Food and Agriculture Organization. So I have two questions. The one is also related to the solar ice machines, because it is something that we are looking to introduce in Namibia. So it would be interesting for us to sort of look at how is this going to pan out. It's also related to us being able to reduce post-harvest losses, but we have very similar questions to what the previous gentleman asked. So it would be good for us to compare notes. But my question goes to Finance Earth, who presented on a community-centered approach to developing financing solutions. And there was also a focus on quality and scalable environmental and social impact projects. So I'd like to understand whether Finance Earth was then able to develop some sort of impact measurement framework for these kind of community-based projects, and is it collaborative in terms of developing metrics and indices together with communities, or how do you do that? Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then I think we'll answer those. Can I invite, the first question was related to the partnership, so ask for the three presenters. Second one was on the how the private sector get involved, and then the solar ice, and the last one was very specific financial. So I'd like to give maybe the floor to Pao and Gail if you'd like to answer the last one.
Yeah, I think in terms of the impact measurement framework, I think in terms of the impact measurement framework, I think I would also really look to our wider partners here. And so Sam, if you feel like you want to add to this question, please do feel free. Because what we're looking to do is actually through partnerships is work with WWF and other partners that are involved in the innovation team to get their expertise when it comes to measuring impact through the communities. So as we look to design this incubator further, that's definitely one of the key work streams that we're actually involved in terms of making sure that the impact is measured, that there's robust evidence and gathering that's informing those learnings. And that's not only once the incubator starts running, it's actually through the design phase. We want to engage with communities. We want to make sure that those measurements that we're taking are valuable at multiple levels. So we're looking at how we can create measurements and impacts and take mechanisms that can be aggregated at a high portfolio level, but actually there's a clear follow through back down to the project level to make sure that everything's being recorded at different levels and to have a portfolio view and an all-inclusive view. But what I would say, just to conclude, is that we can bring in, from our perspective, is how we can measure impact and how we can aggregate it and how impact can be translated into the investor. But we work really carefully with our ENGO and other community stakeholders to make sure that those are measures and structures are put in place.
Can you stay there unless someone would like to add something?
Maybe you can just repeat to this is there's an invitation there from what I'm saying as well, that the innovation team already has 50 members of various organizations coming together to co-create this in a very bottom-up manner. And if you'd like to be part of that process, and we welcome anybody in the room to really make sure that it's easy to develop a theoretical impact metric framework, but to make it really meaningful, coming on the ground and deal with the complexity and the challenges of measuring some of that on the ground. We really are building the bottom up. So there's a negotiation to become part of the innovation and very grasp.
Thanks.
Of course, yeah. I'm Gail Hurley. I'm Director of Advisory at Finance Earth, working alongside PAV on the SWIO Incubator Program. I just wanted to pick up on the question from our colleague on how we engage private sector and private investors in this work. It's really, really important question. So thank you for raising that. And Pav in her introduction did talk about the significant uptick in interest in investing with impact, interest in the blue economy. But it's also very, very true that the opportunities are not well understood. And they're not well understood amongst a variety of private investors. I think it's really important. We tend to think of private investors as one bucket, but in fact, there are many, many different profiles of investors in there. There are some of the external impact investors that Pav was talking about, people who, family offices, foundations who are interested in investing with not just profit in mind, but impact in mind. But I think it's really important for us to also think about domestic commercial banks and domestic development banks as well, because often they have significant liquidity and they just simply are not investing in any of this stuff. And they're not investing because it's too hard. They're not investing because it's not well understood. They're not investing because they think about it as being high risk, and it's really wasted opportunity. So I think we need to engage the full spectrum of private investors, both domestic and international, and educate them and take them on this journey with us. I think this is where we need to think about different sources of finance working in complementary ways. And as part of this work, it will be important for us to think about how we can use donor finance, how we can use finance from the multilateral development banks to perhaps de-risk some of these investments and actually make the domestic banks interested, make the impact investors interested, because there's actually their investment is de-risked up to a certain point by the participation of donors, whether that's through guarantees or first loss or other sources of capital. So I think a big part of our work is to take those investors on this journey with us from the very start, and really work with also the donor community as well, and think about how they can support all of this investment readiness work, because that will help the businesses to move up that J curve that Pat was describing much more.
Thanks a lot. So now I'd like to invite my colleague from Kenya to explain a bit about the solar ice, and we'll try also to answer on that question. Okay. You introduce yourself.
Yeah, you already introduced
Yeah, knows where.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lily Mwasi from WWF Kenya, and I'd like to address some of the questions that have come up. It's largely an assumption for now that reducing post-harvest losses will actually give fishers more of a bargaining power and actually ensure better returns for them for the fisheries products, and hence reduce pressure on the fishery resource. But we are implementing safeguards to ensure that we have capacity building built around all this to ensure that they're actually implementing sustainable fisheries. But then again, we also have a very robust monitoring and evaluation system. And so we have catch assessment surveys that will actually give us information and tell us if we need to implement any adaptive measure to ensure that the sustainability of the fishery is continuing. I would like to also address that this is also a learning curve for us. There are things we've done well, there are things we are not doing so well on, but then it is a regional thing, and we welcome learning from other countries as well. And we would like to walk this journey together to collaborate to ensure that at the end of all this, we are reducing post-harvest losses, but also ensuring that the fishery is sustainable. I hope that that captures it. But then I don't know if Elena would like to add anything.
Thanks a lot, Lily. Can we give her that from that? I think the question was on how to manage and expectations from the system. I think that is
Find out from online if you would like to answer the question.
online.
So ask them if they have.
All right. So maybe just to answer to that one, I think it's all about like how do we approach this one? If you are developing a project on fishermen, I think the easiest way would be like to consult them before developing what to get. And so that can ensure that what will be matching to what they are expecting. It's not always easy, but I think that will be easy. I'd like to give a chance for the online participant if there's any question from your sides before we close the sessions.
Hi, everyone.
All right, no question then from you guys. So with that,
my name is Maureen. I am from Kenya. I have heard you talk about the solar. There's a new solar cooling drying equipment that is somewhere around the Mazar, for those who know that area. Maybe if you can try and check it out and see how it can help. Thank you.
all right, thank you. And before I conclude this session, there are a few all right. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for these sessions. And I'd like to especially thank those who speaks and those who presented here. And I think this is not like an end. Please feel free to join and ask questions, those who like to ask. And there has been an invitation to join our Blue Future, so feel free as well. And because we are really close to time now, I do not want to take longer. So thank you all, and big applause to all of you.
I would like to thank all of you for coming once again, and then our main host for doing the moderation. I have a few announcements, just 1 minute. I'm doing my PhD in Alaska, and I also teach in Alaska. So last month at a faculty board meeting, we discussed that there's a need for us to make sure that African students get opportunity to have education in fisheries. So what the department has agreed is that they are giving a 10 slots for African students that they want to do masters and PhD. So if you know anyone interested in fisheries, in PhD and masters, please check the University of Alaska Fairbanks department. I'm a very busy person. I do a lot of work, my consultancy, my teaching, my students, but I may be able to help in terms of application. But first, look at the department and someone who you are really interested in his or her work, and email her. Probably if they agree to pick you up, then I can help you with other stuff that I can. But I'm very, very busy. I travel a lot also. So please. Thank you so much.